I just wanted to share with you today how to create Polaroid emulsions, which is basically you make a print from a Polaroid picture by removing the backing of the Polaroid while it is still fresh. And I'm going to show you how to do that, how I do that with my Polaroid One-Step Lab. This allows me to print photos whenever I want that I've taken earlier. So I don't necessarily have to have all my supplies with me when I print the photo, because the trick of these photos and these prints, these emulsion prints, are that you need to do them quickly before the Polaroid has completely dried. It's a lot easier to do it at that point. So this allows me to take the photo, edit it, or keep it on my phone until I have time to do this. And then I can make a whole bunch in one day, which is really nice. So this is the Polaroid Lab, and this is great because it connects with my cell phone. I downloaded an app onto my phone, and this absolutely works where you put the film in it and you put your phone on the top, and it reads the photo on your the photo that's on your camera on your phone, and it creates a Polaroid from it. It's really, really great. The prints are a lot sharper because I've taken it with my phone, which has a better lens than a standard Polaroid film, or excuse me, a Polaroid camera. And so I can get much better prints, and you can also do some really fun, interesting things with it. Like the app will allow you to break up one photo into 4 or 3 or 2 or even more if you wanted to make like a big collage. It's a really, really cool way. There's a lot of options to do with this. So I've used this for a long time. The other supplies that you need are 2 trays. One tray is going to have cool water. One tray is going to have hot water. I have my hot water in this thermos here that I'm keeping it nice and hot until it's time to do my emulsion. Scissors. Obviously you need some Polaroid film, and you need a Polaroid camera or this Polaroid Lab. And you also need some watercolor paper. Here is a previous print that I have done. This was some oranges that I had. It was actually on a green backing, but once the photo printed, it turned out pretty dark looking. And I have put this right on watercolor paper. So these are these unique pieces that are kind of one of a kind. You're never gonna get 2 that are exactly alike, and they're really fun, and you can make this into a piece of art for your home. So I have watercolor paper. You can use all kinds of different watercolor paper. This one I've used is a torn edge, a deckled edge piece of watercolor paper. It's got a lot of texture to it, and it created a really cool print on it as well. So that's this watercolor paper. I also have a black watercolor paper, and this is the Canson extra large watercolor paper that I use for a lot of stuff. The great thing about the Canson is you can, it's not, it's a good paper to test on. It's a nice paper, but it's good enough that you can practice on it and not be worried about how many sheets you're using. It's not a horribly expensive type watercolor paper. So I like to use this. And then if you wanted, once you get your print in place, you could always decal the edges later if you wanted that look. So love the Canson watercolor paper. So I'm gonna go ahead, oh, and the last thing is you need a paintbrush. This is just a fan brush meant for acrylics. This will help us get our photo off of our Polaroid. So when we go to create our print, we will cut the edges off of our Polaroid, and then we will dip it in water, and the warm water helps release the chemicals and things that are on the Polaroid so that we can then remove it from the backing, and then we put it in the cold water to actually put it on the paper. So a lot of fun. I'm going to show you how this works. I love doing these. I'm going to go develop some photos right now, and you can see what we have to work with.
I was sending them all this information 3 years ago, and they just didn't touch it because it wasn't a priority for them. So that is what's so disappointing.
How do you feel now? Because this has been your life since you were 12, and then it actually completely took over once you kind of started this. What has kind of been your life mission, and you were.
Okay, so I have developed my photos and I went ahead and developed 8. So I had some extras just in case if it didn't work out the way that I wanted to. I wanted to make sure I mentioned that I am using the I-type film for this. This is the kind that works with the emulsions. For the 600 film, that one does not work the same way. So you want to make sure you have the I-type film to make these emulsions. Okay, so what we're going to do first is, this is the photo I decided to go with. It's not perfect, which is what I love about Polaroid. It's got some character to it. As you can see, there's kind of like a white stripe down the center, and there's even a little bit of a little issued here on the side, but I love that. That's what's so great about Polaroid. It gives it character and makes it fun. If you're looking for perfect pictures that you're going to put on these emulsions, Polaroid, at least with not at this grade, is not the right way to go. However, the image is sharp, you can tell what it is, and the colors are really pretty. So this is the first one that I'm going to choose. So what I am going to do first is take my scissors, and I am going to cut the edges off my Polaroid. So I'm going to trim the white right off. And I like to leave a little bit at the bottom for gripping for when I separate it. Okay, so now I am peeling off the backing very carefully off the back of this photo. This is the chemical developer. And as I mentioned, this is going to have some character to it. So we're not looking for a perfect photo, we're looking for something kind of interesting. Okay, so you can see it's peeling apart very, very slowly. If it starts to pull, I sometimes start from a separate direction. Really, you should be doing this with gloves. The chemicals have never hurt my hands, but you just want to be careful what you're putting on your body. Okay, so it had started to peel, and then because I went the opposite direction, it worked out a lot better. So we are just going to pull this off and set it aside. Now we are going to take our hot water from the thermos, and we are going to pour it right into the tray. This is boiling water. You can see it's got a little steam to it still, which is good. I'm going to save a little bit for later. This can be done with an electric kettle. I just boiled water on my stove, and then I put it in a thermos so it would stay warm. Then you take your photo and you place it in your hot water. The brush will help you, will help you peel off. Now you do want to be careful because this is hot water, and if you just stuck your hands in it, you could burn your hands. So what I like to do is just use the brush to peel this off, and this is peeling off beautifully. You want to get the white off first, because the photo is what is underneath the white. So when you have the water at the right temperature, that white comes off really, really easily. It just peeled right off. Now we're going to work on removing the picture from the actual print itself. And I'm just going to test my water and see if it's cool enough to put my hands in, and it is not. So I'm just gently using this brush to pull off the photo from the Polaroid. And I'm just doing it slowly and gently so that it comes off in one piece. If you try and push it and go too quickly, then you are going to ruin your photo and put holes in it. Which, as we mentioned before, sometimes that does give it character and it can look kind of cool. Just depends on what you're going for. Happy accidents are okay. But what I'm really doing is letting the hot water do most of the work here. The water is going to take care of most everything that I need it to do without having to do too much work to the Polaroid. So right now our Polaroid is coming off beautifully, and the water's cooled down enough that I can stick my fingers in, so that will help me hold down the Polaroid so I can brush off the photo in a couple places where it's still sticking. So the best way I can describe this is that it's kind of like a jellyfish. It's like a little, it floats around and is very movable in the water, but the second you take it out of the water it becomes stiffer. And so you can see that's what, this is a piece that I've pulled off. It's very sticky feeling. It's an interesting, and we're just slowly pulling off the photo. Okay, so this is the backing. You can see I have pulled it off. This is the clear plastic piece that was on the front, and we have our backing. And in the water, we have our little jellyfish photo. Okay, so now that we have our photo taken off of the back, we are going to go ahead and put this piece of watercolor paper into the water so that we can transfer it into the cool water tray. Now, the reason why you don't want to just pick it up is because this is very delicate and it can rip and pull, so you don't want to just pick it up. It's going to end up, you know, putting holes in it and ripping up and not looking great. So what I do is I stick my paper into the water below it, and then that's why we use watercolor paper, because this paper is not going to be destroyed when it goes into the water. It's meant to be wet. And then we take our paintbrush and we put our print so that it's holding on to it in there. And I am just going to very gently lift it. I don't want to hold it too much with my fingers because it will tear. But so I am picking it up and I'm putting it in the cool water so that this has some debris from the other Polaroid. This will give it a nice clean workspace so you don't end up with that debris on it. And what we are doing is we're using our paintbrush to sort of move these pieces around until it gets into a pleasing display. And this does not have to be a perfectly square photo. It could have wrinkles, it could be twisted, it could even have holes in it if you like that look. It's really up to you as you are the artist. But so the way that you want it to kind of hold in place is once you get it into a design that you like, you can kind of remove the water from the surface and move the Polaroid until it gets into something that you like. Now, if I like the top, so I like the way that it's pretty square on the top, but I'm not crazy about how wrinkled it is on the bottom, then you can just hold onto the top and don't get the whole paper wet, dip it in part way, and then just keep moving until it pulls into the direction you want. And you can do the same thing if there's a corner you don't love. You can easily lift it and get it into the right position. So I love this right here. It's a little crooked, but you could also trim around it if you wanted something really straight. But I think the part about these that is so cool is the fact that they are not perfect and they're not straight and they're not exactly like what they would look like if you had printed the Polaroid. It's meant to be a piece of art and it's meant to have interest. So I love it. And then all I do is I let this dry. I have some paper towels and I let it dry nice and slowly. And once it starts to dry a little bit, a lot of times I'll put something on top of it. Just make sure that it's dry enough that it's not going to stick to your print. So let that dry. That's one of the nice things about watercolor paper is it will stay dry. If it dries curly, you can take a little water spray bottle and spray the back and then put a book on top of it so you can be sure that the front is not wet. You could put a little wax paper or something there so it doesn't stick to anything, and then you let it dry completely. So this is how we do those Polaroid emulsions, and I hope you like this. I love the way it turned out. It looks beautiful and vibrant and fun, and I would absolutely hang this on my wall.